This week on Christian World News, revolution in Ukraine. A new government takes over with an evangelical Christian at the head. Will threats from the East endanger the new leaders? Plus, North Korea jails another foreign Christian. What's the secret strategy behind this string of arrests? And what does it mean for North Korea's underground church? And Syrian citizens are caught in the crossfire of a bloody civil war. Millions fleeing for their lives, and they're finding help from some unexpected sources. Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. An evangelical Christian is the new leader of Ukraine. That's among the many changes that have shaken the country this week. Parliament installed a new interim government, including Baptist pastor Alexander Turchinov as the temporary president. The country's new leaders face big challenges as the Russian military and pro-Russian forces in East Ukraine threaten their control. Still, the Ukrainians press forward to rebuild their country. Their first act was to mourn the victims of the uprising. My colleague George Thomas was there.
Many of you today probably feel the same as I do. There are a lot of tears in our hearts.
At one of Kiev's largest evangelical churches, Pastor Anatoly Kaluzhny tries to comfort a grieving congregation.
To be honest, I am not euphoric. My heart is aching because our nation has paid a big price in blood.
Ukrainians have been mourning the more than 100 people killed in clashes between riot police and protesters. And that sadness settles over a country facing dramatic political changes. After 3 months of protests, anti-government demonstrators are now in power. Ukraine's parliament stunned the nation by voting overwhelmingly to impeach President Viktor Yanukovych, who then fled the capital city. Hours later, members of parliament picked Alexander Turchinov, a prominent evangelical Christian, as interim president until new elections in May.
The evangelical community knows him as a great preacher. The political community knows him as a principled, honest politician. Alexander Turchinov was always known taking a stand against corruption. Definitely, Steve sees this like a divine hand of God. So that person with personal, family, Christian values can become a top leader, and in a time of turmoil, extremely critical time for the country, he can be trusted with the power and pulling country together.
Christians were praying on Independence Square. We were praying in our churches. People around the world were praying for us, and God did a miracle. Ukraine is a new country.
And to give you a sense of just how dramatic the changes have been, a few days ago, this entire street was completely filled by the so-called Ukrainian Berkut, the police. Today, you have dozens of men. You can take a look all the way down. These are ordinary folks who have taken up position in front of the parliament. What happens next is very uncertain. As lawmakers scramble to put together a coalition government, skepticism abounds. That includes former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, free after spending the last 30 months in prison.
We need to totally change the government. We need a whole new set of leaders. We don't need the rich oligarchs back in power. They need to go.
Ukraine's neighbor, Russia, closely watches the changes. It has huge economic ties here, and President Vladimir Putin has publicly talked about bringing Ukraine back into its political orbit. The protesters instead want closer ties with Europe. America warned Russia not to even think about sending troops into Ukraine. Back at Pastor Kaluzhny's church, a plea for reconciliation after months of turmoil.
We need to unite because the society is divided east and west, north and south. We need to come together and make very important decisions in the days ahead.
George Thomas, CBN News, Kiev, Ukraine.
Thanks, George. And you can follow George's reporting from Ukraine during the day. Just go to our CWN Facebook page and you'll see these photos of former President Viktor Yanukovych's home. Ukraine officials gave George a private tour of the mansion. Check it out. The fancy furniture and expensive trappings right there. It's just a glimpse of his lavish lifestyle, so out of touch with the average Ukrainians. Be sure to check it out. And as always, post your thoughts and comments while you're there. Well, North Korea has arrested another Christian missionary. This time, it's a 50-year-old Baptist from South Korea. Kim Jong-uk admits he was trying to establish an underground church in North Korea. Reporter Mark Martin has more.
South Korean Kim Jong-uk is now the third Christian missionary to be imprisoned in North Korea. He joins American Kenneth Bae, jailed in November 2012, and 75-year-old Australian John Short, arrested less than 2 weeks ago. The North Korean government paraded Kim, a Baptist missionary, before the media in Pyongyang Thursday, where he apologized for allegedly committing anti-state crimes.
I was thinking of turning North Korea into a religious country and destroying its present government and political system.
Eric Foley heads up the Colorado-based mission Seoul, USA. He says the North Korean regime intends to use the three imprisoned missionaries as bargaining chips to secure concessions from the West.
This is the beginning of what I think will be a sustained effort on the part of North Korea to try to achieve a certain kind of aid and a certain kind of understanding with populations around the world that they believe to be sympathetic. They want to focus off of North Korea's own anti-Christian policies and onto the actions of these men. That's a misplaced perspective.
North Korea's constitution guarantees religious freedom, so if official charges are announced, Christians are often falsely accused of spying or committing other crimes against the state.
It should not be possible to claim both that there's freedom of religion in North Korea and that these men did something deceitful. What they did was very basic, which was the sharing of their faith.
It's still unclear the kind of punishment Kim Jong-uk will face. He said he agreed to hold the press conference because he wanted his family to know he was okay. And while Kenneth Bae is reportedly ill, he continues to serve a 15-year sentence in a North Korea labor camp. Still unknown is the status of Australian John Short. Are these missionary arrests indicative of a new wave of persecution?
This is not a new war on Christians. This is simply the West being able to see what North Korean underground Christians have always known, which is that the Christian faith is not welcome in any form in North Korea. They have demonstrated once again that there is no backdoor for the gospel into North Korea. The only way the gospel can advance is at great personal cost. And so let's pray that God finds them faithful at this point in their imprisonment.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
And coming up, Christians in the Middle East are persecuted and driven out. But these believers are opening their arms to help Muslims and Christians in need. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Inside every child is a hero, a leader, a friend to others, someone who helps out, who does the right thing, who dreams of what they can be, but they still need our help.
What should I do? What should I say? How should I feel?
That's where Superbook comes in. It provides moral and spiritual truths through situations children can relate to, teaching God's Word to the children you love. Join the Superbook DVD Club and receive Superbook's newest episodes as they're available, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. Get Superbook today and watch the miracles happen.
Welcome back. For the first time in Israel's modern history, the Knesset granted Arab Christians separate legal recognition from Muslim Arabs. The bill allows Arab Christians to identify themselves solely as Christians. It also gives them representation on an important economic commission. The bill is part of a larger movement integrating Arab Christians more fully into Israeli life. One Greek Orthodox priest is encouraging Arab Christians to join the Israeli army. 7 Egyptian Christians have been killed in the Libyan city of Benghazi. All were young Coptic males between the ages of 17 and 25. According to the Libya Herald, militant Islamists forced the Christians from an apartment building, bound their hands, and shot them. Their bodies were found on a local beach. Christians have faced increased persecution in Libya since the end of dictator Muammar Gaddafi's regime more than 2 years ago. Radical Islamist rebels in the Syrian city of Raqqa are forcing Christians to pay for protection. The Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham published the terms on the internet. Christians must pay the protection tax twice a year, convert to Islam, or face the sword. In return, the Christians will be allowed to worship privately, keep their own cemeteries, and have their own clergy. But sharing their faith or publicly displaying the cross is forbidden. They also will not be allowed to rebuild damaged or destroyed churches. Well, failure to stop the intense fighting in Syria has led to a new wave of refugees fleeing the country. Their needs are overwhelming, and Christians are responding. Gary Lane brings us more from Iraq and Lebanon.
Another Syrian government barrel bomb explodes on rebel positions. Innocent civilians caught in the crossfire leave the country in droves. The crisis is perhaps the most severe since World War II, and no end appears in sight. According to the United Nations, more than 2 million Syrians are now registered refugees in neighboring countries. Most live in tent cities like this one, Kharagos Camp in northern Iraq. Fighting between Islamists and Kurdish militiamen forced this widow and her children to abandon their wheat farm. The UN has given them food and blankets, but she says she lacks money to buy fresh fruit and vegetables for her children.
And it's not just northern Iraq where refugees are pouring over the border each day. I'm in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley. Refugees are still coming in here. This camp is only 6 months old.
Many of the Syrians living in tents here have yet to register with the UN. So they're turning to Christian groups and others for help. Faiz arrived here from northeast Syria just days before we met him.
The militias were bombing and we were without electricity and water. Our city was surrounded by the Free Syria Army and Jabhat al-Nusra. They are kidnapping Christians. It's a very bad situation.
Faiz's family now lives with his brother Kamal's family, who arrived 6 months ago. A total of 13 people cramped in this small 2-room apartment. Faiz feels safer in Lebanon, free from the militants destroying Syria's ancient Christian community.
They're trying to kick all the Christians out of the country. A Christian friend of mine was working construction, building a government school. They killed him and stole his truck. They don't have any compassion or mercy for us Christians.
But groups like CBN partner Heart for Lebanon are showing much compassion for the refugees. Those like young Mohammed. His family set up this small tent on farmland in southern Lebanon. The tent leaked when it rained, so a Heart for Lebanon worker convinced the property owner to let the family live in this shed. Mohammed stopped attending school more than 2 years ago, shortly after the Syrian civil war began.
He's a good boy, and he wants to go to the school. All 12 years old. He's 12 years old.
Pakistani education activist Malala Yousafzai tours a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. She and others worry Mohammed and his generation may lose any access to education. In 2012, a Taliban terrorist shot Malala as she returned home from school. She's now a global advocate for girls' education. But young refugees need more than education, food, and housing. Many, like 13-year-old Hamid, desperately need medical care. He was born without fully developed legs. Hamid endured a strenuous journey to Lebanon.
There's only one bone instead of two bones like the rest of us would have. You can see it doesn't attach correctly down here. That's not how the tibia would normally be on top of the talus. And you have the whole fibula is missing.
Not only did Heart for Lebanon provide Hamid with a comfortable mattress and food for his family, they also helped arrange leg surgery. Now, with more help, Hamid may eventually walk. They're also helping others with war injuries like 18-year-old Faraj. When we first met him last summer, Faraj needed his mother's help walking. Today, he's walking on his own. Faraj nearly died in Homs, Syria, when a rocket exploded in his living room, tossing him like a rag doll from a second-story balcony. The fall broke his arm, and hot shrapnel tore into his chest and back. He says he's doing much better now thanks to medical care and other help provided by CBN partner Heart for Lebanon. I asked if he would like to return to Syria to be a fighter. No, I wouldn't want to be a soldier, he says. He'd prefer to return to work in the clothing industry. Faraj wants Americans to pray for him.
Pray that God will heal me and that I will walk normally.
Perhaps one day, all the way from Lebanon, back to his Syrian home. From the Bekaa Valley, Gary Lane, CBN News.
Up next, meet a man who had read the entire Quran by the time he was 6 years old, and hear how a series of dreams led this Muslim to become a Christian.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
CBNnews.com. News you want, when you want, 24/7. Stay current with up-to-the-minute stories.
Efrem Graham, CBN News, New York.
I don't have to wait for my news anymore. CBNnews.com, at your fingertips all day long.
I only watch the stories I want to see.
I find the story, I click on it, and boom, I'm there.
Embassy in Washington, Eric Stackelbeck, CBN News.
The source for your news, CBNnews.com.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Nabil Qureshi grew up in a devout Muslim home in the United States. By the time he was 6 years old, he had read the entire Quran and prayed 5 times a day. In college, he began debating a Christian friend about the claims of Islam and Christianity. After 3 years, Nabil realized that the gospel was true and Islam was not. In his book, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, Nabil describes his dramatic quest for truth. And recently, I spoke with him about his journey. You grew up in a loving, devout Muslim home with parents who adored you. And what did your Muslim faith mean to you as a child?
It was everything. It was my identity. It was what we loved. It was our culture. It was our community. Islam isn't just something that Muslims believe. It's who they are. And so to understand the Muslim mindset, when you're talking about Islam, they think you're talking about them. And it's important for us to realize that when we interact with Muslims and our Muslim neighbors, we should show the love of Christ, remembering that this is all brand new to them.
Now, when you were in college, you had a relationship with someone named David that really was very profound. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, as a Muslim, I would challenge Christians all the time. I would challenge them that the Bible had been changed, that Jesus never claimed to be God, and that Christianity, in worshiping God as a Trinity, was actually a polytheist faith. So these are things I had been taught as a young Muslim, and I challenged David. But David was the first Christian out of hundreds I'd spoken to who was ready with the response.
Unbelievable. Well, when did it first dawn on you, Nabil, that everything that you'd believed, everything that you'd been taught since a youngster was a lie?
Well, it was when I was investigating the evidence for Christianity, which stands in contradistinction to the evidence for Islam. Because if Jesus claimed to be God and died on the cross, that not just proves Christianity, it disproves teachings from the Quran. And when I saw that the evidence was strong and that the evidence for Islam was weak and lacking, that brought me to my knees to ask God who he really was.
Well, did you literally get out the Bible and read it cover to cover, or was there a book that you read or something that the light bulb just went off?
You know, it took years, Wendy. I mean, this was a very, very long process. It was the relationship with David where we could really talk about these things openly and keep coming back to them time after time. And we got angry.
Yeah,
we
I was going to say,
doors.
I bet you got angry at first, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was times where we said, we're never going to talk about this again. And then like 5 minutes later, he'd say, Nabil, I need a ride home. And so we would just talk about it. And so that relationship is what got us to continue talking about the gospel.
How did God speak to you personally, Nabil?
It was when I was broken. I was at this point where I realized what the stakes were. The stakes are extremely high. Who is Jesus? If he is God, that changes everything. And so I came before God and asked him directly, I don't know who you are anymore. Can you just tell me who you are? And Muslims often ask God for dreams to guide them, and so I did as well. And God gave me a vision and 3 dreams that led me to Christ.
Well, tell us about one of these dreams that God gave you.
But at this time, I realized that God was hearing me and that I could ask for a clear dream. So I did. I had the boldness and just asked, Lord, give me something that's so clear, I don't even have to interpret it. I just know what it means. I got my next dream, where I was standing at the threshold of a narrow door. This door was just wide enough to fit me and just tall enough to fit me. I mean, it was a very powerful image in this dream, how narrow this door was. And beyond the door was a room which had a feast going on. And I knew that in that room was the feast of heaven. But it hadn't started yet. People were waiting, as if for someone to start the event. And I wanted to get in the room, but I couldn't because my friend David was at the threshold. And I looked at him, and he was kind of blocking it, and I said, David, I thought we were going to eat together. And he said, you haven't responded. And in the dream, I knew that I needed to respond to his invitation to get into heaven. But here's where it gets crazy. When I woke up, I called the real David, and I said, David, can you tell me what this dream means? He says, it's so clear, I don't need to interpret it, which is what I had asked from God. I said, what do you mean? He said, go to Luke chapter 13, verse 22. He knew his Bible, for one. When I flipped to Luke 13, 22, I saw in big, bold letters the words, the narrow door. And as I read it, it was basically saying that Jesus was going through the towns and villages preaching the good news. And the disciples asked, Lord, are many going to be saved? And he said, make every effort to enter through that narrow door. Because many, I tell you, will try, and few will be able. And you will see people sitting inside at the feast of the kingdom of heaven. Make every effort to enter before the owner comes and closes that door, or you'll be weeping and gnashing your teeth. God gave me a dream where he placed me in the center of a biblical parable, telling me exactly where I was in my life.
That is powerful. Well, how did your conversion affect your Muslim family?
It was devastating. It was devastating. We have a small family, just my sister and I and my parents. And as the only son in the family, I kind of carried the honor for our family in the next generation. And becoming a Christian was about the worst thing I could do to my family's honor. So it wasn't just a decision I was making that affected me. It affected the whole family. And when a Muslim comes to Christ, there's much, much that he has to consider giving up.
Well, you've got a terrific new book out called Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, and it's available wherever books are sold. So be sure to get a copy of this. This is a powerful book. Nabil, God bless you.
Thanks
so much
Wendy.
for being with us.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
The Bible says that God speaks in the visions of the night. The question for us today is, does God still speak in our dreams? Can God use our dreams to warn us, instruct us, inspire us, call us to pray, and build our faith?
In Gordon Robertson's newest DVD teaching, Visions of the Night, you'll discover how God used dreams throughout the Bible, how to know if a dream is from God, what to do when God speaks to you in dreams, and how to understand the plans God has for you.
Dreams can tell us what God wants us to do. You can dream of the good works God has created for you and find the satisfaction in life that only He can provide.
Get CBN's newest DVD teaching, Visions of the Night. It's our gift to you when you join the 700 Club. Available now.
The Bribris are among Costa Rica's very small indigenous minority, and they make up less than 3% of the population. Their children have one of the lowest education rates in the country. Recently, CBN staff visited these indigenous communities to give the children an educational boost. Stan Jeter reports.
This is the schoolhouse in the small town of Buenos Aires, about 120 miles from Costa Rica's capital, San Jose. Here, children like Michael appreciate going to school.
I like coming here because of the teachers, the way she treats us.
However, it's 2 days before the start of another school year, and Michael doesn't have any school supplies.
I need a backpack, I need pens, whiteout, glue, and scissors.
CBN staff arrived with a ministry that works with indigenous people. They brought Superbook's favorite character, Gizmo, known as Tuercas in Spanish. The children eagerly watched one of the series' Bible stories. Afterwards, one by one, the children claimed their donation of school supplies. Michael and his friends were finally ready for school. The team then moved on to other indigenous communities to introduce Superbook and provide notebooks, backpacks, and other supplies to needy children. Franklin Navas is a pastor in this community.
The children here had no school supplies, and now we are very pleased to receive these materials.
In all, CBN donated 125 backpacks full of school supplies to grateful Bribri children.
I want to thank Jesus because He brought me these materials.
Perhaps more importantly, they introduced indigenous children to Bible stories through Superbook, hoping that through these children, their communities will discover a better future. Stan Jeter, CBN News.
Those Superbook characters sure do get around, don't they? Well, thanks so much for joining us this week. George will hopefully be back with us next week. Until then, from all of us here at Christian World News, goodbye and God bless you.